Christmas is right around the corner, and that means it's time to take a look at Christmas-themed games. While video game consoles feature a few games here and there that have Christmas themes or even take place around Christmas, there's not a whole lot of them. The opposite is true when it comes to PC gaming. Many companies would release demos and expansion packs containing Christmas themes in the form of new levels or a decorative reskin. Franchises like Lemmings would get a yearly Christmas expansion ranging from 4 to 32 levels each year. The Sims got game expansions, and even Duke Nukem 3D got an official holiday-themed expansion pack. In this video, I'm going to be looking at the Christmas Chronicles expansion for Jazz Jackrabbit 2. The main game was released in 1998, with the Christmas expansion commercially released in November of the same year. The game was developed by a relatively unknown company at the time, going by the name Epic MegaGames. Today, the company is known as Epic Games, the creator of the Unreal Engine and Fortnite. Back then, Jazz Jackrabbit was their mascot character. He's your typical 90s animal mascot with attitude. He's like a gun-wielding Sonic the Hedgehog, kind of like Mega Man mixed with Sonic. I wonder if Jazz Jackrabbit is a ripoff of Sonic the Hedgehog. And does that mean that Shadow the Hedgehog is now a ripoff of Jazz Jackrabbit then? Though I never owned the full versions of any of the Jazz games, I did get a chance in the 90s to play them through various shareware discs. The shareware versions contained a single episode of the game, which was a decent amount of content, far more than modern day demos since you usually got between 20 and 30% of the game for free. While these games were interesting, I never found enough interest at the time to buy the registered versions, though I can't remember ever seeing a boxed copy ever at a store back then. Nowadays, you can get this game for $10 or less on GOG.com. I found it funny that if you look for this game on the Epic Games Store, the one run by the company that developed it, all you get is a link to GOG. The Christmas Chronicles expansion is included with the GOG version and features 3 holiday-themed levels and a new boss fight. I usually start out the review by covering the plot, but in this case, there isn't any plot for the Christmas Chronicles. In the main game, Jazz travels through time chasing his nemesis, Devon Shell, an evil turtle, who stole his wedding ring to complete the time machine. You need to get the ring back so you can marry your girl, Eva. All I can say about the plot is that it's not very good. It was probably added as an afterthought to justify the time-traveling aspect of the game. But this is an action platforming game, so it really doesn't matter too much. When you start the game, you have a choice of 3 characters to choose from. There's Jazz, Spaz, and Jazz's sister Lori. Each of the characters has their own set of moves and abilities. Jazz can make a high vertical jump called the Super Jump, and has the ability to float after a jump, kind of like Earthworm Jim or Dixie Kong. Spaz can't float and doesn't have a super jump, but he does have a double jump as well as a flying kick. Lori, who was added in the expansions, has the same moveset as Jazz, but can't perform the super jump or a double jump. Whichever character you choose, they all start out with a blaster that has infinite ammo. This weapon works pretty well, but has a limited range of about half the screen. There are tons of weapons you can pick up throughout the levels. There are weapons like bouncing bullets, homing missiles, freeze guns, and TNT to name a few. These are all limited in ammo, and you could swap weapons at any time. Each level is quite large and has a lot of verticality to them. Stages include plenty of areas where you'll need to defeat all the enemies or find a hidden switch to progress. Just like Sonic, the levels are filled with bounce pads to help you get to higher areas as well, and tubes that twist and turn. Unlike Sonic, where there are multiple paths to the end of the level, Jazz stages are mostly linear with winding paths up and across the level, although there are a few places where multiple paths will take you to the same destination. The stages are designed pretty well, and there are almost always arrows directing you on which way to go, where it's not necessarily clear where you need to head to make progress. Ignoring the arrows will sometimes lead to an area with hidden power-ups. The stages are designed for both Jazz and Spaz in mind, with some platforms designed for the double jump with Spaz, or an alternate platform and path that needs Jazz's super jump to reach. The only issue arises with Lori, who sometimes can't complete a level at all due to not having the right abilities. This only happens in the main game. The expansions where she's introduced and the Christmas Chronicles doesn't feature any levels where it's impossible for her to complete. The levels are filled with obstacles and hazards like switch blocks, blocks that need certain weapons to break, crumbling bridges, and of course, pits filled with spikes. On top of the hazards, there are plenty of enemies to shoot who will also try and gun you down. Overall, the levels are well designed and will reward you for exploration. Levels are pretty long and will take you some time to finish. There are many checkpoints along the way, so you'll never be put back too far if you die. I never felt like the levels were too long, either. This is because the amount of variety in each stage. One section can be bridges and platforms, then you traverse a cave area, and finally get to a small town where you're jumping across rooftops. None of the stages are overly challenging, but at the same time, this is a 3-level theme pack built around the holiday theme, so I'm not expecting pixel-perfect jumping with excessive enemies harassing me. These feel like early to mid-game difficulty. Still, I did die several times while learning the enemy positions and the best way to clear my path. Your characters each have a life bar. Getting hit by an enemy or falling prey to a stage hazard will reduce it by 1 heart. Finding carrots will increase your hearts by 1 up to a maximum of 5. Whichever character you pick, they all have pretty slippery controls. As you start to move, you'll build up momentum, and at full speed you move very fast. In some cases, you'll need even more speed than that to make a long jump, and that's where the run button comes in. If you jump while running, you turn into a spinning ball, much like Sonic, except green. Stopping is pretty immediate when you're walking, but if you're running, the character needs to slow down a bit, and you'll usually miss the mark you were aiming for. Landing jumps is the most difficult part of the controls. Due to how quick and sensitive the controls are, it's really easy to miss platforms entirely, especially while holding the run button, which even speeds up your movement in the air. Luckily, there aren't bottomless pits in the game, so at least the levels were designed around the control mechanics. Other mechanics can work well too. The butt bounce saved me several times from bombs and crates that explode and make it easy to fall down large drops and not take damage from enemies. At first, I had a hard time with the controls as I'd initiate the butt bounce while jumping, but eventually I got used to the controls and was able to stop doing that. The double jump with spaz reminds me of the double jump in Revenge of Shinobi, as you need to make the second jump at very specific parts of the first jump. This was a little annoying to learn, but I adapted eventually. There are various weapons and ammo types laying around the stages, but I still mostly use my regular weapon. As I played the game, I felt that I needed to conserve the weapons with limited uses until I was in a tricky spot and it was necessary. But by level 3, I was maxed out with ammo and unable to pick up more. I probably would have had an easier time with the levels if I was using the special weapons more liberally, especially the homing missiles, which are way overpowered. The graphics are great for a 2D platformer, and they're on par with 2D side-scrollers that were on the Sega Saturn and Sony PlayStation at the time. The game plays at a maximum resolution of 640 by 480 in progressive mode, and your sprite is relatively small, which allows a large amount of the level to show on screen. This way, you'll never really have to deal with a cheap shot from an off-screen enemy. Despite the small size of the sprites, they're incredibly detailed with lots of color. This was the era of 3D accelerated computer games, and despite having no 3D, this game still makes use of the graphics card to keep the animation fluid and the screen scrolling very smoothly. It looks like a lot of modern-day side-scrollers in that respect. Each area has at least 2 layers of parallax, which gives a good simulation of depth. The Christmas theme looks real nice and fits very well with the game. Enemies wear Santa hats, and the final boss even has a Santa suit on. The ground is covered in snow, and the backgrounds are filled with Christmas trees, ornaments, string lights, and candy canes. I only wish that there was a little more to the Christmas theme. They could have had weapons that were reskinned to look like Christmas ornaments or other things, but it's really just the background and the Santa hats on enemies. The music in this series is amazing. Obviously, there are only a few tracks for the Christmas Chronicles since it's 3 levels, and those songs mix Christmas songs into the soundtrack's overall style. But the entire series has some amazing upbeat music. Here's a sample of some of the tracks you'll hear in the game. Overall, I really enjoyed the Christmas Chronicles. It was designed originally as a demo that would be given away to customers that registered their copy of the game, but at the last minute, Epic decided to make it a commercial release. This doesn't surprise me very much, coming from a company that nickel and dimes its users for skins in Fortnite. Being this was intended as a free demo, it's pretty short. I beat the 3 stages and the boss in about 40 minutes on the normal difficulty. It might take longer on hard though, and you can always play through it again as the other characters. Overall, for the price you can get it nowadays, it's absolutely worth it, but I wouldn't spend $30 to $50 on the 3-level expansion back in the 90s. As short as it was, I still enjoyed the time I spent though, and I'm ready to take on the main game, which has tons of levels. If you're looking for a good 2D platformer, this is one of the best available for the PC from that generation. The Jazz Jackrabbit 2 collection on GOG includes the entire regular game, plus the Christmas Chronicles, so there's plenty of content for you to enjoy. Like always, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Thank you all for watching, have a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and I'll see you in the next video.